was not hooked up with all the work we were doing. So we've got that back. Generator 2 is running great. And the repair was actually quite simple. It was just to make a connection for a control wire. We performed some cranking checks on generator 1 last week, but were unable to get the gas to fire off. We weren't sure if it was a wiring issue or a control valve or what. As it turned out, the gas control valve was stuck. We were able to go and lubricate it and free it up, and today we did fire it off. And we plan next week to do a 4-hour test. And when that's completed, then we'll be able to put it back online also.
Would that not get stuck if we did a maintenance run, you know, every 3 to 6 months?
In the case of this unit, it's been idle for a long time, just with all the issues. So yeah, I know Dave, in talking to David, you know, his goal would be to do cranking checks and you know, on a monthly basis, just to get this stuff loose, keep it loose. But yes, I think just from its long period of idleness didn't help. Those gas valves are also scheduled for replacement in the next couple of years, is when we start doing
regulator upgrade.
Right, we do the controls upgrade, get rid of the fuel regulators. While we've got the unit down, we'll replace those units too, because they're, you know, they're contemporary to the units. And so that was, we very likely will have those generators up and running. And once we get the generator 1 proved out, then we will go ahead and shift the circuits back from substation 2. But we don't want to get too much going at the same time. Transformer 1, city administrator signed a contract with SIGA for $20,000 to do the bid specs for that job. We'll be moving on that. I know, Baldwin, you'd ask about bonding versus not bonding that unit. One of the, as Matt was saying, typically what you do is if you have items with long life, it's best practice in municipal financing to bond them so the future ratepayers share in the cost. Where you would find a good case of something to pay now, let's say you had $1 million street maintenance program. Well, everybody's using it and they will use it immediately. Those are typically cash funded if you can. But once you get into these long-term major capital investments that will serve, you know, last for 20 to 30 years, it's the general custom is to bond them. In the case of the electric fund, about the time the debt for this unit would come online, we should have debt falling off. So as far as your debt service costs, it's going to be somewhat neutral, because what's falling off will be roughly equivalent to what will be coming back on, which would be around 2016 on this.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm just curious if, depending on how this year ends up, and then that we're slightly over our requirements that we have for our operating reserve fund right now. So we have an amount there, not the 1.5 million, but I think it's 200,000 or 300,000.
Right.
That I'm wondering if we could, you know, bring us back to where we're in line with our policies, which would reduce the amount that we have to bond with that available cash. That's where I was going with that. Sure,
no, I understand that. And very likely what we may do on this is there's 2 ways to temporarily finance. Very likely what the finance director and I talked, right now I've got cash funding the design because it's a, you know, very small amount. But typically you could do a resolution which allows you to refund yourself for expenses that occur within 60 days of that resolution or afterwards. We very likely may basically carry the expenses and refund ourselves with a debt issue. The cost, we've got $1.5 million in it now. It looks like the size of transformer we're looking at maybe in the $1 million range. But at this point we just initiated the work with SIGA. One other aside too is the contract that we have with Bill Fish. He's been supporting us throughout all these issues we've been having with the generator, so our support contract is paying off. Substation number 2, we have a contract with Eaton for roughly $125,000 for a bus duct upgrade and switchgear upgrade. Those materials will be delivered around September 15th. We had a coordination meeting yesterday with SEGA, generation and distribution. The distribution crew will assemble the connecting duct between the transformer and the switchgear house, and then the contractors' forces will come in and do the interior work of the switchgear. Looking like, because of training, we can't start the week of the 15th, but the distribution crew will do their work the week of the 22nd, and we're working to get Eaton's crew in the following week. Take an outage probably beginning September 22nd on transformer 4, hopefully up within 4 weeks at the latest. Distribution projects, continuing to work on the alley project between south of downtown. I think the main item of work left is the bore underneath Center Street to replace the overhead crossing. Also continuing the underground circuit upgrade that kind of runs north and south through the center of the Conestoga Mobile Home Park. That's in progress. The distribution building parking lot is currently advertised for bids. We'll open bids on the 23rd of September and scheduling council consideration of award October 6th. While that contractor will have 28 calendar days to do the work, during that time we will move the distribution operation out of the distribution building, house them in the energy center. They'll still have foot access to the bays for equipment, but that way the contractor can get in and out. It's roughly 1,500 square yards of 7-inch asphalt or 7-inch concrete to go down, plus a base stabilization. Pardon me. Just an aside, over the last couple of weeks we've had 4 outages. We had one at US 56 in Cedar Niles. Blinked a fairly large area because it was a combined circuit from substation 1. Turned out a bird fairly arced between 2 phases, and I think we were out for a couple hours on it, or out for an hour. 5 customers were out for an hour. Kind of following that, we had an outage in Conestoga, possibly triggered by the blink. One of the last sections of the old direct buried KCP&L line failed. That was about a 2.25 hour outage for 100 customers. And then had a few other outages downtown in the area, which were 45 minutes to 30 minutes. Follow up on the gas transmission line. Just got confirmation yesterday that we are basically clear with KCC. Everything that was noted in our inspection is now resolved. We have our contract with Black Hills Energy to manage and operate it on our behalf till the end of the year. Before the end of the year, we will renegotiate a contract to carry us into next year, so we can keep them doing gas line, we can keep doing electric. Spill prevention, containment, and countermeasures plan. The draft is due next week. Lease agreement for the replacement trucks has been signed, and we're moving forward. We do have the trucks. We're just waiting to have Alltech come down and pick up the old trucks, which have been sitting in the yard for a month. Got the integrated resource plan you all approved. It was approved by the council on the 18th and has been shipped to Western Area Power Administration, and we're just waiting on approval from them. And finally, the KMEA power supply study. Council approved your recommendation in July, and which was for them, KMEA, to look at 12 megawatts of new power for us beginning in 2019 after the OPPD contract drops off. Talked to KMEA today. They received about 45 megawatts of interest last July. There is very little interest in buying pieces of plants. Insufficient to go after partial ownership in the coal-fired, the nuke, or the gas-fired plant that they were looking at. So they're concentrating on capacity and energy products available from KCP&L or just through the marketplace. They've got some pricing now. They're trying to negotiate it, but it sounds like they could have some options coming back. One thing they are doing is concentrating for the Nearman people who I think lose their supply in 2015. They're looking for a gap product, and then our request would begin in 2019. But hope to hear something back on that in the